In this lesson, we're going to learn how to restring a classical guitar. The reason we want to go into a classical guitar and why I am calling it that is because of the way we're going to restring. You could use ball end strings on your guitar, and that's typically what would be considered a folk string, F-O-L-K, folk guitar string, and that's an easy way to do it. However, there's a couple of drawbacks. One is you get all the string parts sticking out the back here, and if you notice, look closely at this one, how they're all nicely tied off, and you don't see the strings sticking out. You may be a classical guitar player or an aspiring classical guitar player, and this is the way you want to go. And in this instance, we have a slight modification of our tools. We always have our string winder, and I am going to be using a motorized string winder in this case with the attachment from Stuart McDonald. The always present wire cutters, the tuner, and the one thing that's different here is I'm going to use a lighter. The lighter is used for making the end of the very last string, the E string, bubble up a little bit so that as it gets pulled in, if it gets pulled all the way down to the tie, the melted part of the string will be too thick for it to pull through and it won't pull free. That's just a little safety precaution. If you look closely at this one, I didn't have to do that last time. The ball end actually came off I had melted the end of the string, but it's just like I said, just a safety precaution. And as you can see in this case, I have a broken string on my guitar. And unlike the other guitars, I'm going to replace all of the strings at one time because I need to get all of the windings off, all the tie downs on the bridge, so that I can start all over again and work my way along and tie them down. Now, fortunately for us on classical guitars, the tension of the strings is not so much that the neck bowing is an issue in your tuning. The necks are usually pretty beefy, and the tension of the strings is light enough to where there isn't much pulling or adjusting of the neck that has to be done. A lot of classical guitars don't even have a truss rod in them. They don't need it. The neck is plenty stiff to be able to handle the tension of the strings. So anyway, let's get to it. Wipe her down a little bit. Now with classical guitars, what you are going to do is make a loop, just like this, for your string, so that when you pull it through the bridge, you're going to wrap it through this loop, and that will pull the string down and keep it from coming untied. Now, the trick to this is to wrap it the right direction, because if you pull it through, you want the tails of the strings to wrap along the bottom of the bridge. So in this case, you push the string through from this side. It's much easier. Now, to do the wrap, you see how I have my fingers here. There's our loop. You want to have it going over your index finger and down over going underneath your second finger. That is so you can hold the wrap, hold the loop as you twist it. And you want to go counterclockwise. The reason that is so that when you pull it through, the tail of the string is going the right direction. I'll show you in just a second. You see the tail of the string is now going down the bottom of the bridge. This makes it nice and neat. It will get caught by all of the other strings. at this end, what we need to do is get some sort of an idea of how we're going to wrap this string. The thing with nylon strings is that they are very low tension and they will stretch a long way. So we need to get some starting idea. Now, if you go between, measure between the two tuning pegs, the next tuning peg, take that point and bend the string and kink it so that you get a spot where the string will hang. At that point, now run the string back up through and then wrap it around the string here. And now what we have is the string, as the string locked in place, and as it wraps, it is going to lock the string and keep it tied in place. Now, in this case, the string is going to wrap towards the upper bout of the guitar, or towards the bass side. And what we want to do is, as the string is pulled in that direction, we want to make sure that we get the string as straight as we can going through this nut so that it doesn't bind. Now you can see that string is not going to bind at all. Okay, now we can cut the string off. Now for the A string. Now, same thing as before, but you want to go under the previous string wrap that's left over. So now, hold it, loop it around, counterclockwise, 1, 2, 3, bring our string around, through the loop, put your bridge back in. Now to get our other string here, going up to the next peg and kinking the string so that we'll have a place where it will stop. Going in, feed it back up through the peg head. Now to wrap it around and give it a little bit of a kink. There we go. Tighten her up. Okay, on to our next string. Through the hole underneath the winds that are already there, counterclockwise. 1, 2, 3. Bring our string through. Bring our string up. Do a little kink. Bring the string back up through the peg head. Now we're just going to wrap this guy around. Put our string back into the slot here. Okay, we're getting there. Cut off our strings. Down to the G string. Okay, now that we're down to the unwound strings, the trick is here, they're a little bit more slippery, so I try to get 4 wraps, 4 twists. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gives us a little bit more of the string to grab onto. Pull her tight, and you can see how the tails of the strings are all almost braiding themselves going down the end of the bridge. Now, again, as we were talking about at the bridge end, since we have wraps here, the smooth strings, of course, are going to be a little more tricky to deal with as far as making sure they stay put. So I really I wouldn't give too much in the way of a kink here. Give it a little bit longer, maybe 2 peg head lengths, and then bring it up through so that we can lock it in place. Okay, we want to wrap this string going towards the center of the guitar so that we don't bump into the headstock, and that's how we will turn it this time. Okay, now we're down to the B string, and the same as all the other strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now to get our E string in place. Now in this case, we want to get our E string in, but we're going to melt the end a little bit so that we get a ball on it. Just want to get it near the flame. We just want to get a little bit of a ball on the end there, just like that. So that if it pulls through far enough, it'll catch on that ball and won't pull through and pull loose. So here we go. Same as before. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that in place. And in this case, I'm going to kink all the way up because the E string tends to be a little bit more slippery than the other strings. Now you've noticed, take a close look, our G and B strings are wrapping in that direction towards the center. Our E string, we don't want to do that. We want to wrap it going the other direction. We want it to come back towards the E string so it will line up more with the slot so that it doesn't bind so much. You see, these two have some angle on them, but there's really nothing you can do about that. You know, the peg head is sloped away from the strings anyway, but you want to get as little as possible so you don't get binding in our slot. All right, now we just need to tune this guy up. Okay, all of our strings are on and it's looking very good. Take a close look at how the bridge is done. All of the strings are wrapped nice and tight, and the strings will not pull loose. Now, just to clean it up a little bit, I'm going to take these last little ends off. And so looking down here at the headstock, we can take off what tails are left, just so it doesn't look sloppy. And you can see I used all of the E string, and the reason that is in order to get enough wraps to hold the string in place, and also take a close look at how the wraps are done. You see these two strings, your G and your B, are both wrapped going towards the middle so that the strings line up better with the slots in the nut. And the E string, however, goes towards the E string in order to get a nice straight shot into the slot. Same with these two guys. You've got your D and your A strings are going to wrap towards the middle of the guitar, and your E string is going to wrap towards the outer part of the guitar so that you get your strings as straight as you can into the slots. As you can see, you're not going to get them perfect just because of the geometry of the headstock. Some guitars are better than others. In this case, this is what we have. But anyway, these strings are going to take a few days to stretch, and then it'll be ready to go. And remember, when you are working with nylon string guitars like this, or nylon strings in general, it takes some time to stretch them. So give it a few days, keep tuning it. You can actually play it, in 24 hours if you're really diligent about working on the strings. But it takes a little bit for the strings to stretch and to hold their tune. Just be aware of that when you're playing this type of guitar.